Morning, everyone. We're now going to open the public hearing on Senate Bill 22. And here to introduce the bill is Senator Pearl.
Good morning. I'm proud and happy to be your first bill of this new committee. So for the record, I am Senator Howard Pearl from District 17. I reside in the town of Loudon. I am here this morning to introduce Senate Bill 22. So good morning, Chairman Abbas and members of the Senate Children and Family Law Committee. I am the prime sponsor of Senate Bill 22, and it's been made at the request of the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services. Excuse me, the department staff are here today to present on Senate Bill 22 and to take any questions the committee members may have on this important legislative initiative. Just a few highlights. This amends RSA 170E7 in a few spots, and also amends 170E29. And I think this will be a good bill towards helping make sure that we get these background checks through for the, to help with the child care licensing unit. So I'm going to have you ask all of your questions to them, all the technical ones, because they know the info better than I do. But if you do have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Senator.
I'll take that as no questions. All right.
You are relieved. It's our
Thank
first time, so just bear with us. Now call Melissa Clement.
Good morning, members of the committee, and thank you for hearing my testimony. My name is Melissa Clement. I'm the Chief of the Child Care Licensing Unit in the Department of Health and Human Services. The department requested this bill as it was identified by only receiving convictions when we do a background record history check that we are potentially approving individuals to work who may have current charges that haven't yet been convicted. So the legislation would permit us to receive all charges, those that are pending, so we can evaluate those to ensure that we do not have people working with children who would be excluded had they been convicted of the crimes that they are currently charged with. We worked with the Department of Safety Criminal Records Unit on this language, and it also reflects similar legislation that the Department of Education currently has in their statutes when they receive criminal background checks. So we hope you will support this legislation to extend the protection to the children who are in child care programs. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony. One question. So this will show someone who's charged with an offense but not convicted yet, obviously convictions. What if the person was charged but found not guilty of the charges were dismissed?
Then we would not be able to exclude them. In our statute, we have the ones that we currently evaluate when they're convicted, and we would use that similar types of convictions when we're looking to exclude them from charges. One thing I did forget to mention is we also have in our statute that once we approve somebody, if we find out through a law enforcement agency that they have been charged with a crime that is one that would be prohibited, we are able to remove them from child care while their charges are pending. So this would just allow us to make sure we're getting them when we do the initial check and not just after we've done the check.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, the criminal history release, is it just what's noted on lines, on page 2, lines 18 to 25?
Page 2. Page 2, 8. I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
The criminal history that would be released. I just, as it refers to in lines 18 and 24, all the, so
those are the charges that we currently exclude them from childcare, so it would be charges pending that. I would defer to the Department of Safety regarding how much information we would receive. If we receive the full record, even if it includes charges that were other than ones here, we wouldn't use those necessarily in our decision.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
See no
Sorry. just on the effective date, is there a reason why, I think it's 1 through 3? Is there a reason why June 30th of 25 and then the rest is released July 1st of 25, the day later?
So I believe the first one is regarding the funds that we used to receive for doing background record checks. Those funds will end on June 30th. They would be
Okay.
reverted back, so it's the state fiscal year.
Great, thank you.
See no questions? Thank you again for your testimony.
Thank you.
Lisa? So Lisa Maceo?
I'm not here to testify. Just support.
Thank you.
Is there a representative from the state police here? Can you just please state your name for the record?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought I had signed up on the list. My name is Victor Muzzy. I'm here to represent the state police. I'm in charge of the Justice Information Bureau for the state police, which includes the criminal records unit. So a couple things I can add. The child care licensing unit did work with us on this language. I think it's probably goes without saying, it's quite obvious, but there have been a couple of, I'll say, egregious examples that we had over the course of the last couple of years where certainly their department should have been made aware of a person's criminal record or their full history because there were some disqualifying things on there. But because the record had not been updated by another state, they weren't able to see those things. We were not authorized to release those things to them. And so that, amongst other things, prompted, obviously, a change in the legislation to allow for that. So, sir, do I think I answer your question? Our intent, from our perspective in supporting this, is to provide them with the full record. So they're going to see everything, whether it's a DWI charge or whether it's one of their disqualifying charges, to allow them, I think, to have a better and full picture of a particular applicant's character and history. Certainly, whatever determination they make from there based upon their guidelines and their disqualifiers would be up to them. But our intent is to be as transparent as possible with, what the person's record may or may not consist of, again, to make a fully informed, educated decision about one's eligibility, much like we do in education. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of crossover between this and that, and it simply made sense to provide access to the full confidential record for that purpose. And we obviously support that and worked with the department to craft some language that we thought was going to satisfy really what they were looking to achieve, which is to be able to see everything, even though some of it may not apply. And that's all I can add, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
And thank you for your testimony. Some of these, I don't believe, are eligible for an annulment, but if there was a conviction that was annulled, would that wouldn't appear on the record?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who wish to testify that have not testified?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Katie Brissett. I work with Early Learning New Hampshire. We are a statewide nonprofit that works closely with child care providers, programs, and families and children that they serve. And just quickly want to show our support for this bill. We work very closely with Child Care Licensing Unit. They are very good at listening to the field and providers and getting feedback on their work. They're great partners, so we just wanted to share that this seems like a positive change in the direction. And just wanted to put our support behind this.
Thank you. If I could just ask Melissa Clement from DHHS, I had a question I wanted to follow up with you on, if you don't mind. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So in the case of an annulment, because it looks that, if someone has a misdemeanor domestic violence conviction, and I believe it's 10 years they can get an annulment, you wouldn't see that on the record. when you're hiring someone or interviewing someone, is that a question that's on the application? Can you inquire about that?
Sure. So we don't hire these individuals. What happens is childcare programs are the ones who are doing the interviewing and hiring. What happens is the individual submits their information to us so we can do a background record check. If something had been annulled and it's not on their record, then it's not something that we would be aware of. So that would be up to the individual employer to ask if they had concerns, but it wouldn't come through us.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Are there any members of the public who wish to testify that have not testified already? Seeing none? Do I have to announce this?
Oh, we can. I don't think you have to, if you can.
We'll bypass that.
Okay.
All right. Seeing no members of the public who wish to testify, we will now close the public hearing on Senate Bill 22. And the committee will be in recess till 11:30. Good morning. We'll now open the public hearing on Senate Bill 23. Here to introduce the bill is Senator Long.
Thank you, Chairman Abbas and Senator Sullivan. My name is Senator Pat Long. I represent Manchester Wards 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, and 12. I'm here today to introduce Senate Bill 23 FN, expanding the crime of endangering the welfare of child. This is an important bill to strengthen the protection of children. It expands what constitutes endangering the welfare of a child by adding additional volitive conduct. Lieutenant Nick Georgioulis with the Juvenile and Domestic and Sexual Violent Unit of the Manchester Police Department is here to testify and answer any questions, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Senator. Is the police officer in Manchester here?
There. Thank you all for having me, Chairman Abbas, Senator Sullivan, Senator Long. Like you said, my name is Nick Georgioulis. I am a lieutenant with the Manchester Police Department. I've been there for a little over 15 years. Most of my career has been spent in the juvenile unit and as well as the domestic violence unit as a detective and then as a supervisor, a sergeant, and now lieutenant. So the crime of endangering the welfare of a child is something that we've obviously dealt with time and time again. And this issue of expanding it has been something we've talked about for years. So that's why I'm here to testify in favor of SB 23. I've laid out, oh, I guess I should hand you guys this stuff. I knew I was forgetting something. You're welcome. Thank you. So in my written testimony there, this lays out some of the key reasons why I believe this change is needed. Essentially, the crime of endangering the welfare of a child is essentially only a misdemeanor crime. There is one small carve out for a felony, but that has to do with eliciting sexual images from a child. So it doesn't really speak to the general nature of endangering welfare of a child, which usually has to do with things happening in the home or someone that has a duty of care to that child and how that child is treated with that caregiver. So what this expanded language does is provide a felony options that more closely align with the conduct that's done in some of these cases. So this stemmed from many cases over the years where just really horrific cases of endangering, of just horrific conditions in a home, dangerous conditions of a home, things being left out, drugs, weapons, kids living in complete squalor and filth, just really horrendous stuff that we've dealt with time and time again. And kind of when the dust settles, we're left with, okay, really all we have at the end of the day is a misdemeanor charge, which we really don't feel is relevant or is adequate for the conduct that was committed. So there are times I mentioned here where we have to try and get creative, and we've used like a felony reckless conduct in the past, but with that language, it specifically says you need a deadly weapon for it to be a felony. So we've had to kind of work around that language or find a way to claim that something in the house was a deadly weapon. Not really the spirit of the bill of that statute as it was intended, I don't think. So this statute or the proposed language speaks much more clearly and directly to the incidents we see. So it allows for a Class B felony and a Class A felony option if there is either the potential for serious bodily injury or in an environment with serious bodily injury or death could result, or if serious bodily injury or death did result due to the endangering behavior. There's also an inclusion of a pattern of behavior that for repeated instances of endangering the welfare of a child, if it happens multiple times within a 2-month to 5-year period, that could be considered a pattern, and that would also be a Class B felony. At the bottom of my testimony, I do mention a specific case. This was publicly disclosed in a news article, so it's nothing confidential. That's why I chose to pick out this case specifically. This was just from a few months back. It's a case with 5 children and a mother. It was one of the worst cases, just home conditions that we've seen, just hard to describe, but really just disgusting and horrendous conditions. And there's actually a quote from the Judge Delker in this, where he said, based on the law as it stands, he did not feel that the proposed sentence sufficiently reflected the seriousness of Ms. Crockland's conduct in this case. So this is just a very clear and direct example of what I'm here to talk about. There's many others that I've dealt with throughout my career, and I think this statute would go a long way to help protect children, protect victims that are most vulnerable in our community. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you for your time.
Seeing no questions, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who wish to testify that have not testified already? Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing on Senate Bill 23. So I'll need a motion to go into an executive session.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
That motion's been seconded. And we will now open the executive session on Senate Bill 22. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion not to pass on Senate Bill 22.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any discussion on that motion? All right then. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So the motion passes 3-0, or 3-0. Is there a motion for consent?
I'll make a motion to consent.
Oh, second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, that goes on consent.
Let's hope the rest of this session is that easy.
Usually whoever makes the motion is the one that takes it out. That's not a rule, just more of a practice.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm good with it.
You're good with this sponsor. I would hope so.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear testimony.
Okay.
We're done? All right. We've come, a motion to come out of executive session.
So move.
A second.
We're now out of executive session, and we are adjourned for the day. Thank you.
So the only,
It's funny with only 3 people there's.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do you have the sign-in sheet?